Hello and welcome back to the Staunch Talk Show. My name is Princess Mahogo, and I'm super excited today because we have a very, very special guest. Her name is Pumza Sikumba, and she is a favorite amongst the South Africans in the sign language department. I'm sure you've seen her somewhere on TV, and she is here to join us today to talk a bit more about herself, the work that she does, the importance behind the work that she does. So let's welcome her to the show. Welcome, Sissy, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's just get into it. May you please talk to us about where you grew up and how your childhood was growing up?
So I grew up in Eastern Cape, in Mzansi, Kwawan. And when I say Kwawan, they get scared. So I'm from Mzansi, Kwawan. I am the last born in 5 girls. I'm also a twin. I grew up in a family of 6. It was us and my mother, and one of my sisters is deaf. So yeah, I was the one who was curious in doing things. I was also the tomboy for the family because we didn't have a boy. Someone had to do the chores outside the yard, so I was that kind of a girl. Yeah.
So that's how you got introduced into signing.
Signing, yes.
All right. For the following question, would you be able to answer it while signing what you're saying?
Okay, I'll try.
All right. So, were you, besides now having a sibling that's deaf, was it something that you were interested in, or you only found interest because you had this family member who obviously needed to communicate with you guys differently?
Okay, so I didn't even know there was something called interpreting. I didn't know, but I realized that being the last born and my sister being the second born in the family, you said that she's died. So I realized that she's missing out in many things that are happening at home because all of us, we couldn't sign. So when I walk around with her, because we are from a location, when we walk around, there will be people that knows that she cannot speak, but they will make fun of her, they will tease her, they will say things because they knew that she couldn't hear and they knew that we couldn't tell her. So that prompted me to start learning how to sign. And the main idea was for me to tell her what are they saying, because I couldn't fight her battles because she's older than me. So that's how I started learning sign language, because I wanted her to be capable of doing something if she wants them to.
Yeah. And if you don't mind me asking, then before you learned how to interpret, how were the family dynamics? How did you guys communicate? How did the family communicate with her? Did they used to write down, or because there must have been some sort of communication before you came along? So how was that like?
So most of them, they grow up in schools, boarding schools, and she is one of the people who went away. She was not staying with us, so we didn't have the privilege of learning how to communicate with her. So we will do homemade signs, like, when we want to say something and we didn't make sentences, we were very specific because we didn't know how to. But she also accommodated us because she knew that we cannot sign, so she would try and speak even though her voice is not clear, but she would speak to us and we would get what she wants to say. But it was difficult for her to get what we wanted to say, so we would do signs like, because of the beard of the fathers, like, my father is saying you must go, So that's how we signed with her, because we didn't know how to sign.
So how did this then move from you being an interpreter for your sister to then becoming your career, a career path that you follow?
When I was home now, I would sign for her whatever that she's missing out on, because she taught me basic signs, but it was just signs, it was not interpreting because it's 2 fields.
Okay.
So I would communicate with her, and she told me that actually you can interpret. So there was one girl still around the community who said that, would you please interpret for me, please? And I was like, but I'm not an interpreter, I don't know how to interpret. She said that that's what you are doing, it's interpreting. So I was like, okay, where are we going? She said, it's college. And I'm like, college? I can't, because when you fail, it's on me, you know? So I started there interpreting, and then I was told that you can actually go to Johannesburg. There are more opportunities that side than being home. So I was like, oh, okay, let me try it. That's how I came to now learning how to interpret and then being the interpreter that I am today.
What are some of the proudest moments in your career of being an interpreter?
Wow. A lot of them, because I've been interpreting for some time now, like very long time now. I interpret the one that I feel I will always treasure. I interpreted for the World Federation Congress, which was huge. All the countries that were in South Africa, ICC in Durban. And when I applied for that, it was not a post. I applied to volunteer in that conference, but I was told that no, you are not worth volunteering, you are worth interpreting. And I was like, me? Because I didn't register to be. I felt like, no, it can't be, you know? So I was called. It was the biggest platform ever. There was huge screen background. It was me interpreting. I would walk out of the conference room because it was huge, and they had to make sure that we are visible enough for the delegates that were attending the conference. So we were huge. There I was from Tanzania in a huge street in ICC. Like, I didn't register that moment. I would walk out, stand by the door, look at what is happening. So that was the biggest for me. I have interpreted for well-known people, for either funerals or, but for me, that one takes the trophy.
I'm sure. So could you please just explain for us, you said that it's two different fields, interpreting and signing. So could you please just explain to us?
Signing is a language. So you learn a language, you acquire the language, and then you work, you use that language. So I acquired sign language to become sign language interpreter. You acquire English to become English teacher, kind of a thing. So I learned how to sign, but I couldn't interpret. So I can chat. Chatting and interpreting is not the same thing. So when you have your spoken interpreter on your ears, when you are listening to any foreign language, that person is interpreting. So that person goes to school and learn how to interpret. So that's what happened to me. I went to university to learn how to interpret. So I did not go to school to learn how to sign. I personally felt like it's better for me to socialize and be amongst them so that I can know how to sign, rather than going into class, because in South Africa we jack of all trades, because we don't have a specific field to say I interpret for that field. They need you there because we are few, so you have to learn as much as possible. In class I was going to be limited in learning how to sign, and I mastered my signing from learning from them and not from a lecturer in class. And then I went to school to learn how to interpret.
That's amazing. You need to teach me to say that's amazing. I got it. Okay. I think I might be the next person who's an interpreter in South Africa, so look out, because I'm coming for your job.
Yeah, very few. You're more than welcome.
And so proudest moment is that one for you. And what would you say now to a young person who's watching right now and is like, I would so much love to be where Sis Pumza is currently in her career, or follow in her footsteps and get to where she is, because it's even if it's not a family member that's affected, they just want to be able to help the deaf community, because I feel like they're not being given the much attention that they deserve. I mean, I feel like they miss out on a lot of information because you'll see here and there in some news departments they do accommodate them, but for the rest of the other events there's no one there to interpret or sign for them. So a young person who's watching right now and wants to know how they can get to where you are, what group would you advise them to follow?
So I would say they should go to varsity. The challenge of being a sign language interpreter, especially in South Africa, you need to know as many languages as possible. I was fortunate, I'm not going to say they should relocate to Johannesburg, no, but you need to know as many languages as possible, because sometimes you work with 2 languages, sometimes you work with 3 languages. I'm doing news, I work with a lot of languages. They can have breaking story in Limpopo. I have to know if it's Isipedi. I have to know what are they saying. So I don't have time sometimes to go and ask what do they mean. So taking a field of linguistics in school, learning languages and learning more about languages, how are they formatted and all that is going to help, because now you have a better understanding of languages. Now you have a way of using them when you interpret. We interpret for deaf people. Deaf people, they use structure when they sign. So their grammar in English is not like ours. It's totally different. For an example, I will say, I'm going to school. They will say, I school go. So the verb is always the last one. Okay. So you need to adapt to that. It was difficult for me because I knew that was wrong. Why should I say it like that? But you need to adapt so that when you sign, then they can understand you. So you will not know that by knowing how to sign only. You will not know that when you don't know the language that you want to be taking a career into. So you need to go for linguistic classes, learn more about languages, and then eventually go and do your interpreting and to become a sign language interpreter.
And then what are some of the challenges that you personally faced on your journey into being an interpreter?
So when I started interpreting, I didn't have a mentor. That was the biggest deal breaker for me, because remember, I'm from Tanzania and I come to Johannesburg, big city, and I'm expected to interpret. Because when I was here, I think I stayed for like a month or 2, then I started getting into it. I started interpreting. There was no one who was saying, no, you don't do it like this, you do it like this. That was the biggest problem, because I continued thinking that I can interpret when I couldn't. So I continued doing that. Only later on, I would feel like, but no, it's wrong. Why am I doing this? Why have I been doing this all along? You know, but I didn't know that it was wrong. It was not intentional, because I thought I was helping. You know, so those are the challenges that I personally faced when I started with interpreting. But later on, you meet people, you go and you interpret. I mean, you make your mark, and people, they start recognizing you. Even people that have been in the field now for some time, they start recognizing you, they see potential, and they start growing you. So having someone who is mentoring you, I mentor a lot of interpreters. Some I knew, some they've been in the field for some time, but I mentor them, sometimes indirectly. So sometimes we have a formal program to mentor those interpreters. So mentorship works a lot. If you have someone on your side who will guide you when you, because we sometimes interpret for difficult settings. You will go for, I once had a case for a deaf person who raped another girl who is also deaf, but he didn't know that it was rape. He didn't know that it was against the law, because again, it's communication. There's no one who told him that you do not do this. He was saying in his defense, because I felt like, no, we need to take the matter out of court and find out if this person understands what he did was wrong. And when we did that with the social worker, we discovered he didn't even know. He says, no, but she sleeps with the other guy, why not me? You know? And when we asked, how did you do that? He said he climbed on top of the shelf where the lady was staying. The lady was deaf and she was sleeping, so she had no way of seeing what is happening or hearing what is happening. She was sleeping throughout until he gained access inside and he raped him. he raped her. And after that, he was in court. And when the judgment was set, he was told of his rights, and he just said, oh, okay, so I'm gonna go home and fetch my clothes and come back. And like, no ways. Today is the judgment day. You are going in, you know. So we face such things because now we feel for them when we're not supposed to, but we are human, so we will feel for this particular person, and we do not have someone where we go back and debrief and be like, this is how I felt today, because also we are guided by the code of ethics. There are things that we cannot talk about, you know. So we go home with that, and you can't share what happened today, and it's affecting you emotionally. So when you have a mentor, then they help you. You talk to them. You are free. This is what happened. This is how I feel. Then they talk to you. So you must have a mentor if you think of coming into this profession. It's not an easy one.
Yeah. And recently, the president officially made the sign language as the 12th official language in South Africa. How did you feel in that moment, and what do you think is the significance of sign language being recognized? How do you think that will help the deaf community or benefit them?
I was happy. It felt like my language now is recognized. It's been recognized in our constitution for a very long time, but it was not official. So some people felt like I'm not obligated to do anything, you know. But by being official, then it meant that everyone now is obligated to have us. Come and learn. You should have us now. Everywhere they go, they have to gain access in their language. And the mistake that many people they do, they think that we can write down, they will understand. Not all of them understand. They don't write, they sign, but their first language is to sign, not to write down. So I was happy when I heard that it's now official. I was very happy, but at the same time I felt like it's still gonna take some time for it to be implemented as an official language. We are sitting here, there are teachers in some deaf schools, in majority of deaf schools, they don't know how to sign, and they are teaching deaf kids, you know, and we expect them when they leave high school, they should go now and start somewhere. They can't even access university because their grades are so low. It's not by choice, it's because of the people that were teaching them. They didn't know how to sign. I cannot be an English teacher when I do not know English, you know. So I'll teach you in my class, and then what happens? You go out of the school not knowing the language. So it's still very far for the government to accommodate them.
And so what other structures that you think can be implemented within our society that could help people, the deaf community rather? So you're mentioning the issue of teachers that could be implemented in schools. So just in other areas of communities like clinics, or any other place in our communities, what are other things that can be done to help the deaf community, to help them, I don't know, feel like they are being recognized, they are being respected, given the respect that they deserve? What can be done? What more can we do? Maybe even as a society, let's not put all the blame on government. What can we do maybe?
So I because we are few as interpreters, like I have said before, it's impossible to have us everywhere. We are very few, we are that few, you can't. So, but I think everyone, when they are doing their planning, they should remember that we have deaf people, and in your process of planning, just take note that you have to look for a sign language interpreter and make sure whenever that your planning is taking place, you have an interpreter. That way they will also feel included. When they go to the clinics, they don't have access because now they get there and they get people that cannot sign, and because of the pressure sometimes in our public hospitals and clinics, they don't have time to be trying to understanding this person. They need to move to the next person. As a result, we have cases of deaf people who have been tested HIV positive, and they feel it's a good thing. Positive is a good thing. It's is what they were taught in school. They go out of the clinic telling everyone that I am positive, meaning I am fine. You know, so there's a lot that still needs to be done. They go to police stations, they cannot express themselves in police stations. Maybe it's a GBV case, they cannot say what happened, because when they get there, it's either the police will say, no, he signs, I don't understand how to sign. Will you help that person? You find that they sit there the whole night, they are not attended to. So knowing that you have people for the institutions, public institutions, they can have interpreters on first dial. When they have a case, they know that we have these people, we have an agreement with these people, we're just gonna call them, and then they'll, no matter the time, then they're gonna come and assist. That way we will have lesser problems, because we are still developing as a country, we understand, but also we will also be mindful of them.
Yeah, true, that is true. And what fields can young people explore within the linguistics or interpreting fields? What other things can they explore in those fields?
So in interpreting locally, which is South Africa, like I've said before, we interpret everywhere. I go to courts, I go to conferences, I go everywhere, because we are so few. But in countries that have developed, to America, they have legal interpreter, they have educational interpreter, so they are very specified. But with us, you can interpret anywhere. When you do linguistics, you can be a lexicographer, you can do your own dictionaries. In specific language, of course, you can be a teacher, you can be a speech therapist. I mean, there's a lot that speaks to languages that you can do if you do linguistics.
And then lastly, may you please just tell the people at home where they can find you on social media, if they want to get in touch with you, how can they get a hold of you? Maybe if people want to hire you for events, now that we are being more conscious about what we're doing and we want to be able to include the deaf community and recognize them. So maybe if someone has an event that's coming up, if depending on your schedule you are available, where can people find you on social media?
So because I am a freelance interpreter, so I do not have an agency that you can contact to get me. You get me directly on social media, all platforms. I am Pumza Sikumba. Yes, so if you contact me on social media, surely I will respond.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. How do I say I love you? The thumb right?
Yeah.
Okay. Love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. This was so much fun and insightful as well, and insightful. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. I hope that you have learned a thing or two from today's episode, because that is what this show is all about, sharing and receiving information. So if you do have anything to say to us, you can leave your comment in the comment section below. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Until then, goodbye.